Hi everyone, I'm Annie Malarkey. I work for Wix.com here in New York City. I'm the New York Community Partnerships Manager, which means I do a lot of events and a lot of meetings and emailing.
Hi, I am Jess Knatzer. Please do not call me Jessica, I will be upset. I work at Milk Studios as their social media director, and my department sits within an agency, so I do a lot of agency work, but I also run social for all of Milk Group as well.
My name is Sarah Mendelson. I'm a community manager and social media marketing manager at Havas Media, which is an agency, so I work on a bunch of different clients in a few different realms.
I'm Sarah Conley. I'm a fashion and beauty social media consultant, and my primary client right now is a plus-size fashion brand called Eloquy. I handle all of their customer-facing social media communication and their customer service on those channels. And my phone is apparently trying to talk to me. Sorry, guys.
That's okay, because you have a fierce bag.
It's stuff full of tech because I am always ready to sit down and deal with the customer service situation.
Alright, so our first question I think is something that people are really thinking in the back of their minds. How long should people be connected to a personnel via social media or email before attempting to relate to them and meet with them in real life? So let's take a moment to digest and then.
Okay, so I think it really kind of depends on the situation, like what you really want out of that meeting, but what I would say is be upfront and honest. Do not ask for an informational interview if you really want to work for that company, because you don't want to come off as like, oh, I'm just trying to get in the door so I can tell you what I really want. So I would just say, like, be as honest and fresh as you can, and then show up to where they're speaking, show up to where they're doing things, and just kind of start to be familiar, and then they're more likely to kind of know you and be more likely to talk to you and have a meeting with you later.
Yeah, I think that all makes sense. In my opinion, I think as long as you're, like she said, being genuine and you're not approaching someone in a way that kind of makes them feel strange or weird, I think that's always positive. For example, definitely researching the person, making sure you know about them, finding out where they are, going to meet with them in person, making sure that when you do email them, you want to sit there and maybe think about your approach, and in my opinion, it's good to kind of let them know that you admire their professional career and that you would love to have a coffee or learn about their experiences if they're available, and kind of go for it, because what's the worst they can say? At the end of the day, no is no, and that's fine. You did your due diligence, and good for you.
I only really connected with one person, but on the side I do music PR, and I have a rapper that I do PR for, and there was this writer at the Fader I was trying to connect with, and I basically just responded to almost all of her tweets. Like if she tweeted a song, I would be like, oh, I really dig this song, or if she wrote an article, I would tell her, give honest feedback, and now we became like Twitter friends, and we would share music all the time, and she started direct messaging me, and then at that point I thought it was okay to email her, and she ended up writing about my rapper that way. But it was really, I had tried to be as genuine as possible and really cared about the other stuff she was doing. I wasn't just asking her for work, I was reading her work and trying to be a friendly person, and she's my friend now, but we met on Twitter. So.
To piggyback off of that, I've actually made the majority of my best friends from Twitter, because I feel like if you're really a heavy Twitter user, you can really get a lot of information about someone from their tweets, and you can connect on jokes or music or your favorite brands, that sort of thing. And so I think that's personally the best way to get in touch with me. For me, LinkedIn requests always seem a little suspicious, unless there's a message attached. And emails are great, but sometimes emails go to spam. It's just the nature of the medium. So for me, it's Twitter or Instagram, because then I can get a really good sense of the things that you're into or your point of view. So those two are probably my best recommendation to get to know someone.
I think Jess, you touched on this about getting weird So how, I know, when you're cold calling or you're cold emailing somebody, you do want to build a connection on that one message, but what are some recommendations you say without scaring them off? Maybe some blacklisted language. And feel free to add on if you guys have any weird experiences.
I think it depends on what people are saying. One time I was looking through our direct messages for milk, and someone reached out to us and they were like, "Can I ask you something?" And I'm just like, well, thinking, how are we going to reply to this as a company? It's like, if you have something to ask someone, then ask them. If you're going to direct message us because we follow you on Twitter, great. So that means we appreciate you. We find you to be a community advocate and appreciate that, you have things to say. So ask us that. Don't ask us like if you can ask us something. Because like that's the worst possible way to get someone's attention, because they're just like, yeah, sure, question mark. Instagram is great because Instagram Direct, they don't have to follow you, you don't have to follow them, you can direct message them, and it's easier to not be weird because people can see that you're a real person with like a day-to-day life and with an interesting point of view. And so I think using visual social networks is probably a good way to kind of direct message and get a good non-weird message across to them to make that initial connection.
I was doing a phone interview for a director of marketing who had a very prestigious resume, and we get on the phone and she goes, "So I Googled you, and oh my God, I can't believe I'm talking to Stylet." And I was just like, wait a minute, we're supposed to have a really professional communication. You work for Amazon, you're an adult, why are you? And it was really off-putting. And she referenced my best friends that she used to follow on Twitter too, and I was just like, hang on. And I mean, I still am very much put off by that, but I've gotten to know that that's just sort of her personality. She is very passionate about the people whose style she admires and that sort of thing, and will fangirl anyone. But that was initially very off-putting, and so I think my best advice is to sort of just grease the wheel a little, and just get to know someone, ease your way into it before you just get really excited all over the place.
Freaky.
I mean, she's lovely, but that was.
I'm sure she's a great person.
It's still.
All right, Andy, this is for you. I know that which you're working with, kind of reaching out in partnerships. What are some good things to have online to supplement an application or a resume?
Yeah, I think I see tons of resumes, a lot of students coming out of college, and what I don't see enough of is a great headshot. It's one of those things you should just invest in because you're going to use it all the time, and when people Google you for a job, they're going to want to know what you look like. I know that's superficial, but you want to show your best face. You don't want to have a drink in your hand. You don't want to look sad or too serious. Look happy. Look like you're someone who I really want to work with this person. This person looks friendly and professional and awesome. I also don't see enough bios or contact information. It's funny, I want to know what city you're in. That's important information to have on your website. We were looking through a list of photographers, and half the photographers do not list where they are, and that's one of those things that you want to know. And then I also see a lot of PDF resumes when actually it's better to have a text resume. Because Google is going to be able to crawl that information. With a PDF, they're not going to be able to see that you're an intern at these awesome fashion places. So I always recommend having a text resume and then having a downloadable PDF that's really easy for them to download. And just a clean, nice website that doesn't show all of your work that you've done, I think is really important. You want to have something that you can pull out and say, if they ask for more of your work, here's something else that I've done that is not on my website. So
awesome. Good advice. So this one's across the board. Clearly we're all 24/7 social media. How do you guys manage your personal social media and online voice versus your professional? Let's mix it up. Let's start over there.
It's such a loaded question. I think one of the unique situations that I'm in right now is that the Eloquy Voice, which is the channel that I manage, she's very excited about the brand and about fashion because it's not something that she has had access to really in a really like fun, exciting, and vibrant way. So I think that she's incredibly happy all the time and is just really excited when there is a ridiculously neon midi skirt because we all need one of those. My personal voice is a little more sarcastic. Yeah, I can be very sarcastic.
I totally relate on that.
And just, I get excited about the things that I love and, sometimes I'm not so happy about the things that I don't like, but I think that there is some crossover because I have a very strong filter. It may seem like I share a lot, but I call it controlled transparency, and that I make you think that I share everything when I really don't. And just being aware that you can take any situation and tweak it with just a little bit of editorial and suddenly it sounds more positive or more any sort of direction.
So I do community management for like 7 different brands, and they're very different. Like one is a whiskey brand and the other is like a teenage clothing brand. So I have to be very careful, obviously, because I accidentally put like something about whiskey on a teenage clothing site, that'd be really bad. But I use like Sprout Social a lot for Twitter so that I don't get them confused, because it's sometimes confusing to have like multiple Twitter pages open at once. And for my own personal social media, I only do it on my phone. I don't do it on the computer. So that, I guess, it's a really basic way of separating it.
So for me, Milk at the core is extremely different from me. Like a lot of people come up to me and they're like, oh my gosh, because when I first started, I did all the community management as well as the strategy. They're like, I thought you were a guy. And I was just like, no, that's just our Milk voice. It's a little bit more masculine because we started as a photo studio, and the photography world in the early stages was very male dominated. And so our founder, Matt Decarossi, he kind of has like a easygoing, like masculine vibe about him, and we kind of based our voice for our company off of our founder because it makes a lot of sense for him because he's kind of like why this amazing space exists. Now we kind of like to use all of our employees as ambassadors, and we really encourage social sharing at events, tagging Milk whenever it's relevant because it is a lifestyle behind the lives that we all live, and that kind of complement our workplace. And really being at a company that has like several different companies from production to casting to our agency work to retouching equipment and then the actual studio spaces, like everything and anything you do kind of goes back to that lifestyle, because we're all creators at the end of the day. So for me personally, I'm using, like Sarah said, my phone for my personal channels because I don't want to accidentally tweet something from my personal stuff like, oh, I'm going to take a picture of tulips this morning. If that went out on Milk, that would make absolutely no sense. So you have to be really, really careful. From the Milk side, we use Hootsuite, and we do sometimes for our agency clients, we use Sysmos or Radiant 6, which are like listening tools, analytics, and also like community dashboards and things like that. So it just depends on what the goal is.
Yeah, I'm not really managing like our channels as much, so it's probably not like the perfect question for me. But yeah, I will just say that you can never think that you have a personal page that no one will find. Like, don't ever. You just be careful. Like they will find a way to find your personal Facebook, and I just want to say be careful because. Yeah, people are snooping now when they want to hire someone. So just remember, there's the snoopers out there.
But still be you. Still be you.
Yes, still be you.
Yeah, it's all about being you.
Still be it.
Right, so Sarah, this is for you. Because you mentioned you work with several brands, 7 of them. So as you're building your portfolio and you're listing out all your accomplishments, how do you filter out your best of to represent to your hopeful new potential employer?
So this is actually the first agency I've worked at, so I haven't yet presented it to somebody else yet, but if I was, I think it would depend on the employer that I was going for. So most of the clients I work on are beauty brands, so if I was going to work for a beauty brand, I'd probably highlight the social channels of beauty companies that I worked at, and I would probably mention like the biggest accomplishments I had, because there's some clients that I do a lot more work on than others, and I'm more hands-on than others, so I'd probably go for like the clients that I do more for.
Okay, and this one again is across the board because we can all relate because we're sisters. Social media again is 24/7, always on around the world. How do you guys have downtime? It's okay. Annie.
Well, you know, I've made a rule that we don't have any devices in the bedroom. I think that is a very helpful thing to do, and like always put your phone on airplane mode when you're sleeping, because you don't even realize those little vibrations are actually like stimulating your brain. So I think that's like something that we can all relate to. Like we really do need to like take some time and think about separating those realms a little bit more than we do now. But that's like the one thing I always do that I've really worked on. And I always like read on the train instead of typing and things like that. That's like my me time. So yeah.
So that's a difficult question. In the beginning, you know, you want to prove yourself and you want to work your ass off and you want to be like, look at me, I can do this. Like, this is why you hired me, especially in an entry-level position. And it's easy to kind of like, especially if you take a social media role, to let it take over and own and control your lives. So it's kind of like up to the individual to discover like how to manage that, whether it's like, you know, being upfront and putting it in your contract, like after 7 o'clock at night, if you want us to like tweet or Instagram, that's extra. So like let's maintain and control that. We can schedule things past like X amount of time, like in the evening using like Hootsuite or TweetDeck or whatever. But you know, don't get into the business of like, one of my clients was in Asia, and I had to wake up at like 3 a.m. and 5 a.m. and like all these crazy hours, and then go to work the next day to have phone calls and like send over copy or do all these different things. Like, I will do that maybe for very special clients, and if it's a project where there's, you know, an extra budget, yeah, great, fine, I'm dedicated, it's, you know, campaign, it lasts 7 days, cool, do that. But after that, hell no. Like, we have a team now, and we kind of all take turns, like depending on the projects, who's gonna stay late and who's gonna be in charge of like those tweets or Instagrams that need to go live at a certain time.
Yeah, like Jessica, I also schedule tweets if they have to happen. Tweets in Facebook, Instagram, I do that. I can't do that, but if it's during the weekend or at night, then I normally schedule them in advance. At my agency, we don't do 24-hour community management, so if a client wants us to do that, I get paid overtime, which is really nice. But when I'm out with my friends and stuff, if I'm eating dinner, I don't have my phone out. I really only bring it out if I like really want to take a picture or tweet about something. But otherwise, I make sure to give the person I'm with my attention, because I've noticed people really dislike when you're on your phone when you're talking to them. Friends, family, don't do it in an interview. So I try really hard not to be on my phone if I'm not at work.
I feel very different from these ladies. Because I work for myself and because Eloquy is a startup, I've worked 7 days a week for the past year plus, and it's been sometimes challenging. I might be a little exhausted right now, I'm not gonna lie. But one of the ways that I manage that is I have very clear customer service hours, because I'm incredibly passionate about customer experience. And if someone has a complaint, I want to be there and let her know that we are going to fix it and we're going to do everything we can. And although I am not technically on the customer service team, I have to handle all of those social customer service issues. So my client has very clear expectations about when I will answer within a certain amount of time, and outside of those time zones, like this is the next time that I'm going to check in. And that to me is incredibly important, just because on the weekends I check in 3 times a day and that's it. And I also have to make sure to uphold those myself because I am incredibly passionate about the brand and committed to it. And I sometimes can overextend myself and check in at 1 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. And so it's really about also just understanding what is best for you as a person, even more so than like what your employer demands of you.
Okay, and I think this is something we can all take from follow-up. Through what methods, again across the board, should people follow up with creatives that they look up to and maybe hopefully create or get a mentorship kind of relationship? What do you think is the most efficient way to shuffle through the noise and get their attention? Miss Amy.
I will say, like, showing up to where they are, like, follow them on Twitter, understand what they're doing. If they're doing speaking gigs or anything, like, just getting some FaceTime is really powerful because then you can like take that relationship online a little bit more, and kind of do the subtle Twitter stalking, complimenting, all of that good stuff. That always is really a nice way to do that. And I would also just like try to like add value to them wherever you can. If you see an article you think they'd like, don't always just ask for something. I think that's what gets really frustrating with professionals because it's you want to feel like you're being able to add value to them too. So I do the Find Spark mentorship program and I love it because Wendy, my mentee, she's just great and she actually provides value for me and I get to hear from her and her experiences at work and we have a great interaction. So yeah, I love it.
So, I mean, I guess it depends on who you're trying to get in touch with. Let's say you want to get in touch with like a photographer or something like that. From my end, that's like the easiest thing for me to talk about because we're a studio. No. I think that the best way from experience is if you have that opportunity to meet them in person at one of their events, and you should be going to them actively and make that happen. Don't trip over like chairs to make that happen, but go and make that happen and introduce yourself, look them in the face, look them in the eyes, and like make that connection. Again, not in a freaky weird way, but in like a nice way that's kind of genuine. And tell them like your favorite piece of work by them or something. Make that even like that, or bring in like a photograph and have them sign it. Again, depending on the level. If it's like a kid that shoots for Purple magazine or something like that, he's like in the middle, he's probably really cool, but you don't need to bring a photo and be like, can you sign this for me? It's more like, hey dude, I like your work, like how did you get started? And he'll be like, yeah, I'll tell you about it. But if it's like a big photographer, say if it's like a Ben Watts or a Steven Meisel or something like that, and you're trying to get in there and get their attention and make a lasting impression, then you do need to kind of show that you think they're awesome. And knowing some of the photographers personally because of my work that I've done, like they want to know that because they're behind the scenes. They want to know that you appreciate their work, and they're cool with that. So then when you do retweet or comment, they'll notice it and they might follow you back because that happens. They're engaged. They want to build their followings as much as anyone else does. Because when they go to like BS and be like, I want to shoot a swimwear campaign, they're like, or Victoria's Secrets will be like, well, how many followers do you have on Instagram? Like the photographers have to play that game too, so you help them. Or you help people, and I'm sure it's across the board for a lot of different individuals that you want to meet. So that's my advice.
I agree with both of them. FaceTime is really like the most influential, direct way you can speak to someone. I actually was at another Find Spark event and I tweeted that I was going to it, and this girl who was following me on Twitter and like retweeting me and all of that was there, and I met her for the first time, and after that I followed her, and she emails me now, and I help her out when she needs it. So I really do think that FaceTime is really the best way you can connect with someone.
I'm gonna be the oddball out again. Twitter actually
like a whole well-rounded mix.
Yeah.
Go for it.
So Twitter is actually it's still a great way for me, just because I don't really sit still that much. I always have a million things on my plate. So sometimes in person, I might have something in the back of my mind and can't really connect as much as I would like to. So for example, there's this girl who was an intern at a major fashion website who had emailed me about an interview, and I just couldn't turn it around. But we actually connected, and I set up a Skype with her, and I went over her resume, and I gave her tips, and it was just a really genuine connection, and I really grew to like her. Like, we followed each other on Snapchat, would snap back and forth at night. Like, we just really organically built a relationship, and now she has a job and is moving to the city, and I'm really excited for her. And so I think just finding those people that you connect with, no matter sort of like what age they are, what field they're in, you'll sort of organically grow relationships, and you sort of never know where things can take you.